Welcome to the Innovators. Each week, we're serving up real talk with badass women who are dishing out the truth. No fluff, no BS, just raw, honest stories and lessons to inspire and empower the next generation of trailblazing women. We're here to keep it real and pay it forward. I'm your humble host, Cynthia Nelson, three-time entrepreneur, investor, and advisor. It's a real pleasure today to introduce you to Kathleen Kowall and have her join us. I have to caveat this for the audience. She's my best friend, but I'm not going to let her off the hook. So anyway, welcome, Kathleen.
I have a lot of secret information I can share, but I won't do it today.
Yep. You know where all the bones are buried, right?
I
Literally.
know where all the bones are buried,
Well,
precisely.
so we've known each other since you were at Yahoo back in like what, 2000?
Yes, I hate to share that date, but it was back in 2000 after I got my MBA in California, came to Miami with this vision that I was going to conquer the Hispanic market. And I think that's how we actually started working together, putting
Yeah.
together the agency tour, explaining why digital was so important to the agency world and why it should be part of the media plan, which, crazy enough, was a novel idea at that time,
Especially in Hispanic.
especially in Hispanic. I mean, it was difficult to sell digital into the media plan, let alone convincing brands and agencies that they should be, adding the component of the Hispanic market. But I think
Absolutely.
that was the fun of being trailblazers back in those days.
Absolutely. And from there, like give us some of the history, like a little bit of the background, because I know we're going to get into how you signed 200 content creators last year. I'm just like prefacing, but how did you get from there to where you are now?
Well, I started my journey after I mentioned I got my MBA in California, focusing on international business. And then I've had the pleasure of working with brands and companies like Sony Pictures Entertainment, where I developed partnerships with some premium content, with Shark Tank, and Top Chef, along with some of the theatrical releases that they had in LA, which was a really exciting time. And bringing that to life with brands like SAP, as well as Cartier and trying to think of what else, and Pepsi, among others. And I think that really gave me a really great exposure and some really interesting creative projects. For example, bringing the Sharks to a forum and a conference in Brazil for the SAP Forum, which highlighted all of their biggest entrepreneurs,
That's
and launching the Cartier store in New York City, and then covering that, developing that content and airing that across linear as well as all of the digital platforms that Sony had. I've done dabbled a little bit in the ad tech space, which I think is a key component as well. As you add the innovations in the digital media space, I think programmatic is a really a big player now, and it brings that component of targetability and privacy to play. And then lastly, my most recent gig was working with DailyOM, part of a division of Ziff Davis, which is a course creator platform, and working with a variety of established as well as emerging creators in the wellness vertical. Everything from the day to day as well as signing new contracts, which you mentioned previously.
I mean, 200 creators, like I don't like you're the content platform dream to hire, right? 200 creators in an area like DailyOM too. Like, so there's like yoga people and health advisors who are not like your standard creators, like Mr. Beast, right? They're not like I totally get what to do. I did it. Like you're kind of
Right, right.
trying to pull them along the way of monetizing content because not all of them really completely probably understand what that means.
Well, it was a combination. It was actually, in full disclosure, it was really managing the day to day of 200 creators, and then I brought on 80 new ones. So it was a little bit of take working with the established creators that had been there. It's actually a 20-year-old platform that has been around. So it was a combination of established. I would say that the content was focused on some older topics. I don't want to say more established topics. And then you're looking at the creators that are coming from TikTok and
Right.
launching from
Yep.
YouTube that have maybe the newer emerging topics that were coming about. So it was a combination of both established, meditation, topics, as well as some of the newer.
So I'm going to skip on to another question about valuable pieces of information or advice that you've received. And did you have any mentors along the way? Like, what's kind of a great piece of advice that someone has given you? And or like, did you have mentors?
I think the best piece of advice that I was given was really when I started working in the digital space, being adaptable and embracing change, because that's really the key to the digital marketplace and in working in this space is that, and that's one of the reasons that I've liked working in this space is that you're never getting bored. You really can't sit on your laurels and say, oh, I understand this now. I'm going to do this for the next 5 years, because the next year you're on to the next big thing, and it's constantly evolving and changing, which makes it, challenging. I think you have to stay educated, continually go to conferences and continually learn, because it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. So you have to be continually learning and staying up to par on the most recent developments.
Did you have any mentors along the way? Anybody that
Oh, I
gave?
had so many mentors. I think, I've worked with Liz Sarachek, who we know very well. She's always been, key in teaching me how to present better and research better and make sure you ask this person and this person before you go into that meeting. So I've had so many mentors along the way. Work with some great partners at Yahoo as well, and at Sony, just really the expertise in branding, the expertise in relationship building too.
Right.
Um,
Which is so
Learning those
important.
key skills, yeah, super important.
I mean, the relationship side now, looking back 20 years, like you can pull people out of a hat sometimes, like, hey, I have a contact who used to work at Pepsi. I know how Pepsi works, right? Like you can bring new contacts into things new to you or new to the company because you have established a relationship with them and friendships with them over the years.
It's funny that you say that, because I was thinking about Bridges Unite, which is an organization that I was helping with when it launched a few years ago. And as I was thinking that, I looked down and I got received a call from my friend at Pepsi, and just connecting, and we were kind of not saying commiserating, but just sharing the challenges of working remotely.
Mm,
And when you've been remote for a couple of years, we were
yeah,
just saying how we missed, being out at, she was at CES
yeah,
and seeing people and sharing ideas and getting the latest update on marketing. And that's gone down a little bit, I think, working remotely, but we were both saying how we missed being in those active conversations on a regular basis. But yeah, those long time conversations that and those relationships that you build trust with over the years are integral, and also having that history, right?
right.
We've grown this market from the Hispanic market when it was in its incipient stages, and now we've been doing this for 15, 20 years, and those relationships are, from a learning perspective and a mentor perspective, are super invaluable.
They're critical, I think, and critical as you grow in your career as well into getting new jobs, right? That database of people that you have, I think that's an important, not underestimated piece of kind of the pie, right?
Absolutely. And I think the personal touch, more and more as people are remote, it gets, tapping into those networks and the people that have known you for 15, 20 years is really, really important.
What do you believe is the biggest challenge? We're going to kind of pivot back to content platforms that are looking for creators. Like, what are they up against?
I think one of the biggest, I mean, for the creators or for the platform?
Okay, for the platforms first, and then let's switch to creators.
I think for the platforms, one of the challenges is there's such an abundance of creators, and more every day, that I think finding that authentic voice that matches with the platform. And I ran into that challenge too. Like, is this the right person? Do they have the credentials? Are they emerging, but they're building the credentials?
Right.
And I think more and more with AI that, are the credentials there to back up the content that's being produced?
Right.
Um, and then also the abundance of content,
Yeah.
right? There's free content, and differentiating yourself with, yes, if I'm going to pay for it, it
Right.
has to have that legitimacy there. So I
Special.
think that's definitely a huge challenge.
And on the creator side, what are they challenged with in trying to work with these content platforms?
I sense that monetization is definitely a challenge. balancing, the monetization might be there, but then the algorithm changes, or
Yeah,
they have to create
yeah,
content for one platform. They
right.
have their own personalized platform that they're
Yeah,
updating and producing content for. So one, it's exhausting.
yeah,
And then I think the sources of revenue aren't stable all the time.
yeah.
So you might have a hit here with this particular piece of content, but then the next one may fall a little short. So I think the stability and the monetization is definitely a challenge.
And
And it's
every platform is so different too, right? Like how your audience reacts on TikTok is very different than Instagram and different than anything else, right? It's always really different.
and I think too, there's each creator has their own secret sauce for how they generate revenue. It could be primarily TikTok. It could be they have a book or they have a TED Talk that they're on, or they have their own private practice that they're using the social media to feed into that, but their primary source of income is their private practice. So I
Yeah.
think each creator had their own unique challenges, but I think for all of them, definitely the consistency of the monetization was, and the energy that goes into producing
Yeah.
um,
Good content.
same challenges that we have as professionals, staying informed, staying
Completely.
up to date and learning, and then translating that into what they're creating on a
Exactly.
daily basis.
That
Yeah.
the content creation too. It is exhausting, right? At first it was all like, let's do it super professional, right? Cameras act. Now it's like, yes, for some platforms it's great like that, but for other platforms it needs to be super authentic, like, just grab your phone and go at it, right? It can be, I mean, I can't imagine it must be exhausting.
And I think the authenticity, it definitely resonates with the audience,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah, they
not to
notice,
say that everybody can be polished, but sometimes people want to see
right?
the yoga teachers that are delivering great content, but it could be in their living room and it's really organic and their dog walks by, and that's what hits the most.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you don't know until you test, 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 refine, right?
And I saw that in talking to a lot of them, they've honed that skill
Yeah.
of it. It's really interesting to hear the stories of how they started with
Right.
a camera, and then they developed the lights, and then they developed their own way of putting a script up and reading the script and getting notes, and they improve over the years as well.
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah.
If you were going to give your 25-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I had to think about this one because I think it would probably be to really, and this has worked for me for my career, is really like even when I started at Yahoo, I said, I got my MBA in international business and focusing on Spanish. I'm really going to stick to my guns and look for a role that aligns with that. And it took more time, but
Yeah,
those kind of decisions always resulted in the best outcome.
yeah,
So I guess that would be steering the ship in the
yeah,
direction you want to go in and
yeah,
sticking to your guns and really honing in on that versus kind of going after when I went after the shiny objects and maybe the bigger title and the salary, that always didn't have the best outcome.
yeah,
You learn something, but I think, steering where your passion and your interests lie and then really sticking to that and not following the wave, but
right.
steering the ship, if that makes sense.
No, it's like listening to your gut and your heart, which we kind of send to, oh
Yeah.
no, it's a great deal and a great offer and it's more money. And
Yeah.
then you get there and you're like, yeah, but I just left everything else that I really love to do on the wayside. That's a great piece of advice.
And I think finding the people that you resonate with and the people that you work well with, I think listening to your gut on that, you might see some red flags along the way that maybe those aren't, the best people that you communicate with and that really support you and push you to grow and learn in your career. I think those
Yeah.
mentors are really key.
Finding your tribe, so to speak.
Finding your tribe. Exactly.
Kathleen, it's been really great talking to you. How do people reach out to you when they want to hire you? What's your email address?
Oh, it's super easy. First name, last name at Gmail.
So Kay Kowal,
Kathleen Kowall at Gmail. I
Kathleen
try to
Kowal.
make it super easy.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, such a pleasure to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.